The first time Commander Kale Voss saw her, she wasn't a soldier, a rebel, or even a person. Not in the eyes of the Zirith Empire. She was a possession, a showpiece, a prisoner. But what struck Kale wasn't her bruises or her chains. It was the fire that hadn't gone out in her eyes, even after everything they'd done to her. Her name was Valora, and she was the most terrifyingly beautiful being he had ever seen. The prisoner bay on the Zirith war cruiser was cold and metallic, pulsing with an eerie blue glow. Kyle stepped through the containment field, his pulse steady, his jaw tight. Around him, Zirith guards watched like wolves. 8 feet tall, plated in obsidian armor, they didn't blink or breathe like humans did. But Kyle was no ordinary human. He was the commander of the Remnant Dawn, and he was here on a diplomatic inspection. Officially. Unofficially, Kale Voss was looking for someone. For her. He'd only heard rumors, whispers over black market comms. A weapon, the Zirith said. A prototype. Living tech grown from captured DNA and rebuilt with cybernetic graphs. She wasn't supposed to exist. Then he saw her, suspended by gravity chains, arms bound above her, long silver-white hair falling around bruised shoulders. Her amethyst skin shimmered even under the harsh lights. Her bodysuit, what remained of it, clung to her like a second skin, designed more for degradation than protection. But her eyes didn't plead, they promised. Human. One of the Zirith stepped forward, his voice a guttural growl. This one is not for trade. She's delicate, prone to aggression. Kale didn't reply immediately. His own armor was reinforced, matte black with the sigil of Terra's outer defense core burned into his chest plate. His sidearm was standard, the blade at his back, not so much. Unbind her, the Zirith laughed. The sound was metal scraping against metal. She'll kill you. Kyle's eyes narrowed. Touch her again, and I'll end you. There was a silence then. Not fear. Zirith didn't fear, but confusion. The guards looked at each other. The other humans in Kale's delegation froze. Even the air changed like the ship itself was holding its breath. You can't take her, the Zirith growled. She's property of the Empire. Kale moved like lightning. His sidearm was drawn and holstered in a blur. The Zirith's head hit the floor before his body slumped. Blue ichor sizzled against the metallic floor. You've made a mistake. Another Zirith rumbled. No, Kale said, stepping toward the floating prisoner. You did, when you chained her. With a tap on his gauntlet, Kale sent a pulse override through the containment field. The chains hissed, releasing their grip on Valora. She collapsed forward, but Kale caught her before she fell. She was heavier than she looked, augmented muscle beneath that stunning form, but she clung to him with an iron grip. He could feel her trembling. But it wasn't weakness. It was rage. Can you walk? He asked. Valora's voice was soft, dry, but unbroken. Yes. They moved fast after that. Kyle's team opened fire on the guards. Shots rang out, plasma bolts searing through the ship's corridor. One of the human agents, Mira, tossed a flash grenade that sent a wave of blinding light down the corridor. Kale held Valora's hand, guiding her through the chaos like she was the only real thing in the universe. Back on the Remnant Dawn, alarms screamed. The ship's AI, Hyperion, instantly launched evasive protocols. Kyle barked orders, his voice crisp as command units snapped to life. Engage stealth drive, evasive pattern Theta 5, secure medbay and lock down Deck C. Valora's breathing slowed as the medical bot scanned her. She winced as the sterilizers touched her wounds, but didn't flinch. Kyle stayed at her side, watching the metrics. Don't speak unless you need to, he said softly. Just rest, she turned to him. Why? He blinked. Why what? Why save me? Kyle didn't answer right away. He didn't have some poetic reason. No deep strategy. Just that when he saw her, something primal had awakened in him. Something ancient. Protective. Human. They called you a weapon, he said. But you looked like someone who wanted to live. Valora looked away. Living isn't what they made me for. No. But that's what we'll do anyway. For the first time, her lip quirked. Not a smile, just the shadow of one. Then, Hyperion's voice broke the moment. Commander Voss, 3 Zyrith cruisers are pursuing. We've been locked. Kale clenched his fists. They're not giving her up. No, they're not, Valora said, standing from the medbay table. And they're right to fear me. She walked toward the weapons rack, ignoring the pain. Her movements were graceful, fluid. She grabbed a pulse rifle, checked the chamber, and turned back to Kale. I'm not helpless, she said. Kale raised an eyebrow. You're not. I'll help you fight them, but I want something in return. What? She stepped closer, face inches from his. When this is over, you tell me what you want. Kale didn't flinch. Deal. The ship rocked as the first volley hit. Lights dimmed, sparks fell from the ceiling. Kale turned toward the bridge, then looked back at her. You coming? She smiled. Yes, Commander. Let's show them what happens when you try to break something that refuses to. D. Kale Voss gripped the railing as the remnant Dawn rocked from another direct hit. Shields at 61%, shouted Hyperion's tactical AI. Evasive roll, Vector Delta 7, Kale barked. And somebody tell me how they're still on us. We're running a stealth core. Valora was already strapping herself into the weapon station. Her eyes glowed faintly with a violet hue, synced to the neuro interface Kale's engineers had hardwired into the Dawn's battle systems. She worked faster than anyone had ever seen, her hands moving in a blur, inputting commands that even Hyperion paused to process. They tagged us with a quantum net, she said coolly. They know where we are in all spectrums. I can fry the net with an overload burst, but it'll leave us visible for 90 seconds. Do it, Kale said without hesitation. We'll hit them first. Valora nodded, fingers dancing over the console. The ship's lights flickered as the overload pulse surged from the hull like a sonic scream. Outside, the void shimmered, warping the Zyrith tracking mesh before it cracked like a sheet of glass. The remnant Dawn was exposed now, its sleek hull glowing faintly against the black sea of space. The Zyrith cruisers, 3 jagged monsters, bristling with plasma cannons and cloaked drones, opened fire. Kyle didn't wait. Target the lead vessel. Aim for their stabilizers. Targeting locked, Valora said, her voice cold, calculated, deadly. Firing. A blinding spear of energy lanced out from the Dawn's forward cannon. The Zyrith cruiser buckled mid-flight, flames bursting from its flank. Its shield matrix rippled, collapsed, then exploded as internal gravity folded in on itself and down. The second Zyrith ship retaliated, flanking hard, unleashing a hail of ionized rounds. The Dawn's shielding flared. Kale slammed his fist into the command panel. We need a window. Get me inside that ship. Hyperion responded instantly. Deploying dropship. Tactical units preparing for breach. I'm going, Kale said. Valora stood. So am I. He turned to her, his face unreadable. This isn't about revenge anymore, this is war. She met his gaze without flinching. Then I'm your war. The dropship tore through the void, Kale and Valora riding inside with a 6-man team of Terran Spec Ops. Everyone had seen her fight on the training deck, saw how her reflexes outpaced every human soldier. Still, none of them looked at her. Like a tool, not anymore. She was one of them now. Boarding hooks primed, said Mira from the pilot's seat. 10 seconds. The dropship shuddered as the clamps locked onto the Zyrith vessel's hull. Kyle slammed the door control. Plasma cut into the outer wall in a perfect circle, and the hull screamed as it breached. Inside, Zyrith guards were already converging. Kale burst forward, sidearm blazing. Valora followed, ducking low, her movements like liquid fire. She disarmed. One of the Zyrith, with a sweeping kick, twisted behind him and drove a stolen dagger into the soft armor beneath his shoulder joint. He screamed. She didn't stop. They pushed through the corridor in a symphony of brutality, Bullets, blades, bodies. Kyle watched her from the corner of his eye. The way she moved, the way she never hesitated, the way she always struck to disable, not to kill, unless there was no other choice. Her past had taught her cruelty. But she still chose mercy. Bridge. "Is ahead!" shouted one of the troopers. Kyle kicked through the final door and came face to face with the Zyreth commander, a towering behemoth of chrome and flesh, its eyes glowing like hot coals. "You again!" it rumbled, recognizing Vylora. "We made you. We own you." Vylora didn't answer. She just raised her hand, and the ship's lights shattered. Her mind pulsed through the neural interfaces of the Zyreth tech. She reached into the ship's systems like a phantom, and in an instant she ripped control from them. The engines flared. The lights overloaded. The ship groaned in protest as if possessed. Kyle raised his weapon. "You've lost." The Zyreth commander charged, but it never reached him. Vylora met it in midair, slamming it into the deck with an explosion of energy. The floor cracked beneath them. She drove her elbow into its throat, then shoved a plasma charge into its core. "Run," she whispered. The Zyreth didn't understand. It died trying to. They made it out moments before the cruiser detonated. The explosion lit the black of space with violet fire, a fading star in the endless dark. Back aboard the remnant Dawn, Kale stood with Vylora in the ship's observation deck. They watched the debris drift. "You didn't have to come," he said. "I know." "Why did you?" Vylora hesitated. Her skin shimmered in the low light, the starlight catching the silver of her hair. "Because I wasn't just made to destroy. I was made to feel. And I wanted to feel something real." He turned to her. "You do." Her eyes flicked up to meet his. "You do something to me, Kyle." Likewise. They were close now, closer than caution would allow, closer than regulation would ever approve. But in that moment, war didn't matter. Politics didn't matter. The galaxy, for all its chaos, faded to silence. Then she kissed him. It was a raw, searching kiss. Not soft, not tentative, but real. Her hand found the edge of his armor, his fingers tangling in her hair. It was fire against fire, and for a moment, neither of them had been broken. They were just whole. The alarm sounded again. Another ship inbound. They broke apart. "I guess the galaxy won't wait," Kale said, eyes scanning the screen. "No," Vylora said, stepping back into her armor. "But neither will we." The moment they returned to Terran Command's orbital station, Kale knew things had changed. They weren't welcomed as heroes. They were met by silence, cold stares, and the black-clad officers of the Interstellar Oversight Tribunal. Vylora stood, still as the tribunal agents moved forward to detain her. Kyle stepped in between, jaw clenched. "She saved our lives." "She took out a cruiser with her mind," he said, voice low and sharp. "She's unauthorized alien technology," replied the lead agent, a silver-haired man with a gaze like dry ice. "And she's wanted by the High Consul for unsanctioned neural interference and planetary biotech theft." Kale's hand drifted to his sidearm. "You're not touching her." The agent smirked. "Try it, Commander. You'll vanish before your next breath." Behind Kyle, Vylora stepped forward and placed her hand on his shoulder. "It's okay," she said softly. "No, it's not. I need to see how deep this goes. Let them take me, for now." She let them bind her wrists. Kyle's stomach twisted as she was led away. The tribunal's black cell was more like a sarcophagus. No light. No warmth. Only the low hum of surveillance drones and the oppressive silence of deep space around her. They wanted her to break again. But Vylora wasn't the same anymore. She had Kyle. She had herself. They interrogated her endlessly. Questions meant to confuse her, break her identity, push her back into a mold she had once barely escaped. What is your designation? I have no designation. What is your directive? I choose my own directives. What is your loyalty? She looked up slowly, her violet eyes burning. To the man who told you to go to hell. She could feel it. The tribunal wasn't just human. Not anymore. They were compromised. The Zyreth were already here. Meanwhile, Cale Voss stood before the Council of Commanders, a tribunal of his own. You violated orders. You risked an active Zyreth retaliation. I saved 6 Terran ships and destroyed a Zyreth cruiser. You used an unstable alien. Kyle's voice cracked like thunder. She is not unstable. She is not a weapon. She is a person. The room fell into silence. You're emotionally compromised, Voss, said. Admiral Centrin, stand down. You're relieved of duty until further notice. Kyle turned without saluting. You think I'll stop because you said so? He left the chamber with fire in his blood and war in his eyes. He'd find her, or burn every black site. From here to the Velian Rim trying. 2 days later, deep inside the tribunal facility, Vylora's eyes snapped open. She wasn't alone anymore. The walls trembled. A burst of static tore through the speaker system. Vylora, came Cale's voice through the hacked feed. I'm here. I knew you'd come, she whispered. And then hell broke loose. Cale had brought the Black Wolf unit, the one squad in the Terran military who'd fought the Zyreth on the edge of known space and lived. He'd used his clearance codes burned. Every favor, and now they were inside the tribunal compound, dropping guards like shadows. Get to her, Cale barked. I'll hold the corridor. He turned, rifle up, and laid down a wall of suppressing fire. Drones shattered. Guards fell. Smoke and blood mixed in the air. Inside the cell, Vylora's bindings failed. Kyle had triggered her failsafe. She smiled, letting the cuffs fall. As she stepped into the hallway, everything shifted. There, behind the collapsing wall, stood something she hadn't seen since the day she escaped the Zyreth core world. A bio-executor. Half machine, half Zyreth. War priest, the executor towered nearly 8 feet, wrapped in dark armor lined with searing blue veins. Its voice was distorted and monstrous. You belong to us. Vylora didn't hesitate. I belong to no one. She struck first, leaping at impossible speed. Her fists cracked armor. The executor swung a blade of glowing nanosteel. She dodged, rolled, and drove her elbow into its throat, snapping a piece of its plating. But it was faster than she remembered. Stronger! Its arm slammed her into the wall. She hit hard, vision swimming. Cale appeared in the smoke, rifle raised, but the executor fired a pulse wave that sent him flying. Sparks danced off his armor. Vylora rose slowly. You want me? She growled. Then take me. She opened her mind. Neural energy poured from her. Data, light, sound, memory. A storm of thought lanced into the executor's body. Its systems trembled. It shrieked in binary. Kyle pulled himself up, limping, blood at the corner of his mouth. Vylora turned toward him. He met her eyes. Together? She nodded. Together. He charged first. She followed. Kyle's blade caught the executor's joint. Vylora slammed her heel into the other side. It stumbled. Kyle tore out a chunk of armor. Vylora drove her knee into its core. The executor surged again, howling, but too late. She planted a spike of neural glass through its skull, injecting every memory of pain, every scream, every echo of what they did to her. It died in silence. Later, as the tribunal facility burned behind them and Kyle carried her toward their ship, alarms sounding in the distance, she whispered into his ear, "They'll come for us." He kissed her temple. "Then we'll give them hell." She closed her eyes. For the first time, the chains in her mind were gone, and in their place was him. The stars above Nova Citadel burned like warning lights. Every system across the Terran Confederacy was lit with alerts. The tribunal was exposed. The Zyreth infiltration confirmed. and Kyle Voss had become the Confederacy's most wanted traitor. Inside. The stolen stealth frigate Reckoner, Kale and Valora prepared for war, not just for survival, but to make sure no one would ever be shackled like her again. The message they sent across encrypted channels was simple. They're here, and we're not running. That message triggered uprisings on 3 worlds. 6 rogue fleets defected. The Confederacy splintered. But it wasn't enough. The heart of the rot, Zyreth influence embedded inside the High Consul, lay in the fortress station of Keled Prime, a black glass tower orbiting a dying white dwarf. That was where the final battle would be, and that was where Kyle and Valora were headed. Inside the war room of the Reckoner, holograms flickered with orbital scans. Valora stood silent as Kyle and Captain Merrick plotted entry routes. "You know what they're going to do to you if we fail," Merrick said to Kale. "I do." "And to her?" Kale looked at Valora. She met his gaze, calm and unshaken. "They already did it. I'm still here." Merrick shook his head. "God help you both." Kale turned back to the table. "We don't need gods. We just need 10 minutes on that station." The plan was suicidal, but every soul who had heard Valora's story and Kale's defiance chose to follow anyway. Keled Prime erupted into chaos the second Reckoner breached its outer shell. Valora led the charge with Kale at her side. The airlocks were flooded with drones, tribunal soldiers, and twisted Zyreth hybrids. Blades flashed, plasma burned. Valora moved like vengeance given form, dancing through death, tearing apart augmented guards with hands of liquid precision. Kyle backed her, cold and efficient, rifle-barking bursts of lightning. They cut their way to the core tower, where the High Consul sat upon a throne of stolen will. They were 20 meters from the chamber when the floor beneath them trembled. The Xiao lights died. The temperature dropped, and then the door opened. Not a guard, not a soldier, a god. 10 feet tall, draped in liquid obsidian armor, the creature that stepped forward was no longer just Zyreth. It was a fusion, human, machine, alien, being created to rule through pain and precision. The voice that emerged from the thing's helm wasn't a growl. It was many voices speaking at once. "We are the sovereign." Kyle stepped in front of Valora. "Back off," it laughed. "You think this is about her? You are a flicker, a malfunction. Her suffering created us, and now she will complete us." It reached for her, and Valora screamed, not in fear but in fury. The walls cracked. Kyle felt the power pulse out of her. He stumbled, falling to one knee. The sovereign twisted, surprised, but then surged forward. Valora met it head-on. They clashed in a storm of energy, light and blood. Each impact shattered walls, melted steel, broke gravity itself. Kale crawled toward the neural disruptor built into the wall. It was half crushed. He began pulling wires, fingers bleeding. Come on. Valora faltered. The sovereign's arm slashed her side. She hissed, backing up, her body sparking with overuse. Her biocircuitry surged red-hot. The sovereign grinned. "You are ours." "No," she whispered, and then Kale screamed, "Now!" He jammed 2 wires together. A wave of blue light erupted through the room. The sovereign convulsed, but so did Valora. "No!" Kale ran to her, catching her before she hit the floor. Her eyes fluttered. He looked down. Blood, too much. "Stay with me," he begged. "I'm tired." No, don't you do this." She smiled faintly. "I told you they'd come. For me." "They didn't win." Her hand gripped his shirt weakly. "Promise me." "Anything. Don't let them make more of me." He kissed her forehead. "I swear, I'll burn their empire down to the atoms." A single tear ran down her cheek. "Kyle, you freed me." She closed her eyes. Her chest stilled. He held her until the backup teams arrived. The sovereign's body was gone, vaporized in the overload. The consul was dead. The tribunal was broken. But so was he. Weeks later, in a quiet clearing on the terraformed moon of Res, Kale Voss stood before a black obelisk bearing no name, only a single sentence. She chose her fate and gave us back. Ours. Around him people gathered, not to mourn a weapon, not to grieve an asset, but to remember a woman, a warrior, a soul who had no name, until one man gave her a reason to take one. Velora, the free, the breaker of chains. Kale never returned to. Command. He became a shadow, working across stars, destroying remaining Zyrith factories, rescuing others who had been engineered like her. His name became legend, a whisper. And everywhere he went, he left behind the same message, carved in iron or burned into stone. Touch her again, and I'll end you. The end. If you love this story and want to see Kale's war continue, or explore the lives of other freed post-Zyreth survivors across the shattered galaxy, let me know. I can expand this into a full novel series or spin-off stories.